I always thought I knew Auntie Mae. I was wrong. There's something chilling about realizing the woman who tucked you into bed with warm cocoa and gospel humming might have been carrying a darkness she never spoke of. A darkness sewn into the very fabric of her home. I returned to her old house on Hunter Street the morning after the funeral. Fog clinging to the windows, the yard still damp from last night's storm. I wasn't ready to step inside, but the executor handed me the keys at the cemetery, and everyone else seemed eager to leave. Nobody wanted to linger around grief longer than necessary. I told myself I was only coming to pick up a few things and leave, but deep down, I knew I was lying. The house had always waited for me. Even as a little girl, every visit felt like entering a space that breathed, floorboards groaning with memory, the smell of lavender and cedar drifting through the halls. I used to think the house whispered sometimes, especially near the sewing room. When I told Auntie Mae that, she'd chuckle. A house only speaks when someone's listening, Em. That line replayed in my head as I slid the key into the lock. The door creaked open like it was exhaling a long-held breath. I stepped inside. The living room was frozen in the past. Crocheted blankets draped over the couch, a framed church certificate on the wall, the old TV with aluminum foil around the antenna. It looked like she had just stepped out to the corner store and planned to be back before noon. I swallowed hard. Losing Mae felt like losing the last solid thing in my life. My parents died in a car accident when I was 4. Mae raised me, loved me, protected me. She was the only person who made me feel safe. The only person I trusted. The only person I thought I truly knew. Yet here I was, jittery, uneasy, feeling like her house was hiding something. I walked toward the kitchen first because it felt familiar. The same cracked yellow tiles, the jar of peppermints still on the counter, her favorite floral apron hanging on the back of the pantry door. But when I walked past the hallway leading to the sewing room, my entire body froze. The door was closed. It was always closed. Mae never let me inside growing up. "That room isn't for you," she'd say with that gentle warning tone only she could pull off. Some things stay where they belong. I used to imagine shelves of colorful thread or neatly folded fabrics. But she kept that room locked so often, it became something else entirely. A place of rules, boundaries, mystery. A place I was never allowed to enter. And now, the door was unlocked. No lock, no key, just a handle, waiting. My heart thudded in my chest. I should have turned around. I should have grabbed what I came for and left. But grief has a way of making you reckless. So does loneliness, and I'd spent far too long wondering what she kept in that room. I took a step toward it, then another. The air shifted, cooler, heavier. The hallway hum, something I always assumed was the old AC, seemed louder. When my fingers brushed the doorknob, I felt a faint tremor through the metal. Cold crept over my skin. The house was too quiet, too still. I turned the knob and pushed. The sewing room was nothing like I expected. The first thing that hit me was the smell, a mix of dust, old fabric, and something faintly metallic. The curtains were drawn, leaving the room in dim light. Piles of neatly stacked quilts lined the shelves. A sewing machine sat in the corner, thread still in the needle, as if she had walked away mid-stitch. But it wasn't the sewing machine that caught my attention. It was the quilts, Every quilt was the same size, same pattern, deep blues, reds, and faded greens. All made from old clothing, I realized. Some pieces had buttons still attached. Others had embroidered initials. A few were made from what looked like denim jackets and work shirts. Others from delicate cotton dresses. And inside each quilt, something bulged, thick, uneven, lumpy, not fabric, something inside. Then I saw the small wooden box on the table. Auntie Mae's handwriting. Emily, only open when you're ready. My throat tightened. My name. She knew I'd come. She knew I'd open the room. My hands shook as I opened the box. Inside was a small cassette tape labeled Tape 1. The voices, and beneath it, a key. A brass, old-fashioned key unlike any I'd ever seen in this house. My heart hammered. I looked at the quilts again. The room felt smaller, like the walls were inching closer. The smell of old fabric grew thicker, heavier. The silence buzzed against my ears. I suddenly felt watched. Not by a person, by the room itself. I grabbed the tape, the key, and backed away from the quilts. I didn't dare touch them. I didn't dare open anything else. When I stepped out into the hallway, I closed the sewing room door fast. Too fast. The house groaned, like it disapproved. I hurried to the living room and set the box on the coffee table. My hands were sweating, my mind racing. Why would Mae leave me a tape? What voices was she talking about? What was inside the quilts? And why did she hide a key inside her sewing room instead of her bedroom? The old cassette player sat under the TV cabinet. She used to play gospel tapes on it every Sunday morning. I hadn't touched it in years, but muscle memory guided me. I plugged it in, inserted the tape, pressed play, static. A hiss. Then, Emily, baby girl, if you're hearing this, then it means I'm gone. My breath caught. Mae's voice, warm. Familiar. A voice that shaped my entire childhood. A voice that always meant safety. But her tone was different now. Tense. Worried. Afraid. I kept things from you, she said softly. Not to hurt you, but to protect you. There are stories in this town people don't want told. Static crackled. These quilts, they ain't just blankets. They hold pieces of people who needed help. People who trusted me with their voices because they had nobody else to go to. Pieces of people? My stomach twisted. Mae continued. Some of them were runaways. Some were wives afraid to go home. Some were children who saw too much. I kept their stories stitched safe. I kept their secrets so they wouldn't disappear. Static again. A long pause. But Emily, not everyone wanted to stay hidden. My skin crawled. There was a faint background noise, like someone knocking on a door far away. Mae whispered, "If you open the quilts, be gentle." The tape clicked off. I stared at the player, frozen, confused, shaking. People, stories, secrets, runaways, children, inside the quilts. The house felt colder. The sewing room door thudded quietly in the hallway, as if someone pushed from the inside. I swallowed hard. The tape wasn't long, but every word hit like a stone. Nothing made sense, and yet something deep inside me, some buried instinct, told me Mae wasn't lying. I picked up the brass key, turning it between my fingers. It had weight, real weight. What did it open? A drawer? A chest? A hidden room? I whispered into the empty house. "Auntie, what did you leave me?" The walls didn't answer. But something in the sewing room shifted again. A soft, dragging sound, like fabric being pulled across the floor. I stared down the hallway, heart pounding so loud it echoed in my ears. The sewing room door was now slightly open. It had been closed. I knew it was closed. A chill ran down my spine. I took one step toward it, just one, and the floorboard under the doorway creaked as if someone inside took a step back. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me, "Leave the house, now." But my feet wouldn't move, because someone whispered my name from inside the sewing room. Eerie. I backed away slowly, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. This house wasn't empty, and whatever May stitched into those quilts wasn't done speaking. I couldn't bring myself to leave the house. My body was trembling, my palms slick, but my curiosity was stronger than my fear. Auntie Mae had left me a trail, a breadcrumb of secrets I was supposed to follow. And somehow, I knew this was more than just an inheritance. This was a test, a revelation, maybe even a warning. I grabbed the brass key and held it tightly. I forced myself to take a few steps toward the sewing room. The soft dragging sound had stopped, but the heavy air around the doorway felt alive, almost aware of my presence. I paused at the threshold, staring at the quilts again. They looked ordinary in the dim light, folded neatly on the shelves, their colors muted with age. But the knowledge of what May had whispered on that tape made them sinister. Each quilt held a story, a person, a secret, a voice that had trusted her. I knelt in front of the nearest stack. My fingers shook as I touched the faded cotton. There was a faint, almost imperceptible bulge near the center of the quilt. I followed it carefully, peeling back a corner, and froze. Inside was a small envelope, stitched into the lining. The thread was delicate, precise, almost invisible. I carefully slid it out, my breath shallow. On the front, in Auntie Mae's unmistakable handwriting, it read, "For Emily, only open if you're brave enough to hear the truth." I hesitated. Brave enough? For what? I whispered. My voice echoed softly against the walls. Then I noticed something else. There were dozens of envelopes hidden in the quilts. Some were larger, some smaller, all stitched with care. And on each, May had written different names. Some I recognized. Neighbors, friends, even a few relatives I barely knew. Some I didn't recognize at all. I picked up one labeled Catherine W., 1984. I slid the paper out and unfolded it. Inside was a folded diary page, yellowed with age. The handwriting was neat, almost elegant, but the words made my stomach twist. I don't know who to trust. I'm running again. I'm not safe anywhere. Auntie Mae says she can help. I hope she can. And then another. He's outside. He's been following me since the bus station. Auntie Mae hid me under the quilts. I think he left, but I'm not sure. The fabric smells like cedar, safe. But I don't know for how long. I felt my chest tighten. May had been hiding people inside her quilts, literally hiding them. My mind flashed to all the strange stories she'd told me over the years. Lost children, runaway girls, women in trouble. I'd thought they were just stories, meant to teach lessons. But she'd been telling the truth. All of it. I turned to the stack labeled Emily, 1993. My hands shook. What could she possibly have written about me? I wasn't even sure I wanted to know, but I couldn't stop myself. Inside was a folded letter with the same meticulous handwriting. Emily, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. I have kept secrets that were never yours to carry, until now. There is a man who watches, even now. Someone in this town who would do anything to hide the truth. Be careful. Trust no one completely, not even those who seem closest. The key in the box opens more than locks. It opens doors in the past. Find the diary. It is your guide. And Emily, be ready. You will hear voices that are not yours, and some you will wish you never heard. I shivered. My hands trembled as the tape replayed Mae's voice in my mind. The voices, the quilts, the letters, it was all connected. I noticed the key glinting in the dim light again. The box had only one key. Surely it wasn't for the sewing room itself. There had to be something hidden, something more. I decided to investigate the floorboards. The sewing room had an old, creaking hardwood floor. My eyes scanned every inch. Then I saw it, a small square, slightly raised near the back wall. The brass key fit perfectly into a tiny lock hidden under the dust. I hesitated. My fingers hovered over it. Fear gnawed at me, but curiosity pushed me forward. Slowly, I turned the key. A soft click echoed through the room. The floorboard lifted, revealing a narrow, dark compartment. Inside, stacks of old, leather-bound diaries, folders, and another set of envelopes, each labeled with names, dates, and sometimes ominous warnings. I pulled out the first diary. Its cover was soft, worn, and smelled faintly of cedar. Inside, the entries began in 1979. Mae's voice seemed to guide me even in her absence. The first page read, "I have been chosen to protect the voices of the lost. Some have no one else. Some are too young, too afraid, too broken. Each quilt I make is a shelter, each stitch a promise. I will not fail them. And if Emily ever finds this, she must understand. These voices are alive. They are real. They will call to you, and you must listen. Only the brave can carry their stories forward." I felt my heart hammer in my chest. I understood now. This was Mae's life's work. Not sewing, not quilts, but saving lives. Protecting people the world wanted to ignore. I spent hours sifting through the diaries and envelopes, reading stories that twisted and turned in ways I never could have imagined. Some were heartbreakingly sad, others terrifying. One diary detailed a teenage girl who had escaped an abusive home and disappeared for weeks, hidden under Mae's quilts. Another told of a man who stalked his sister and threatened anyone who tried to help. Each story was connected to a quilt. Each quilt was a tomb, a sanctuary, a diary in fabric. Then I found it, a folded envelope labeled, "The Truth, Hunter Street, 1986. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a note. "Emily, if you are reading this, it is time you knew the truth about your family. Some voices you have been hearing, they were never far. They have been waiting for you. The man you think you know is not who he seems. Hunter Street holds the secret that'll change everything. Listen to the quilts. Listen to the diaries. They will guide you." A sudden noise made me jump. The sewing machine whirred, though no one had touched it. The quilt on the top shelf shifted slightly, as if something inside moved. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone in this room. Somewhere in the shadows of the sewing room, the voices had begun calling to me. "Emily, Emily." Soft, insistent, human, or not human? And I realized, with a chill that burned through my veins, Auntie Mae had not left me a house. She had left me a labyrinth, a puzzle, and if I wanted to survive, if I wanted to uncover the truth, I had no choice but to follow the voices. The whispering didn't stop. At first, I thought it was my imagination. The house settling, the wind brushing the old windows, the creak of the floorboards. But then it became clearer, softer, almost coaxing, like someone was speaking my name from just behind the quilts. Emily, Emily. My heart pounded. I dropped the diary and the envelope, and the brass key slipped from my fingers. It hit the floor with a hollow clink that echoed through the sewing room. I froze, eyes wide, straining to see into the dim shadows. A quilt near the top shelf shifted again. Not just moved by gravity or the draft, but deliberately. Something inside it was alive. My instincts screamed at me to run, but curiosity rooted me in place. Auntie Mae's words echoed in my mind. Only the brave can carry their stories forward. I swallowed my fear and slowly approached the shelf. My fingers trembled as I lifted the quilt. Beneath it, tightly folded and trembling, was a girl, a living, breathing girl, pale, wide-eyed, with tangled brown hair and clothes that looked decades old. She stared at me, frozen in fear. I'm sorry, I whispered. Auntie Mae, she sent me, she said you'd be safe. The girl flinched. They'll come back, she stammered. He said he'd find me. I can't go outside, I can't leave. I felt my stomach twist. I didn't even know where to begin. I'll help you, I promise. But first, what's your name? Catherine, she whispered, her voice trembling. I froze. That name, Catherine W., the same as the diary I had read earlier. It couldn't be a coincidence. Auntie Mae had kept her hidden here all these years, decades, and Catherine had never left. Not until now. I guided her out of the quilt's folds, wrapping her carefully in one of Mae's blankets. Her body was frail, shaking, and I realized she hadn't spoken to another living soul in years. I set her down in the middle of the sewing room and tried to keep calm, but the whispering didn't stop. If anything, it grew louder, surrounding me from all sides. Emily, find the others, find the diary, protect us. I spun around. The voices were coming from the quilts. Not just one quilt, but all of them. Hundreds of voices, some crying, some pleading, some whispering secrets I couldn't yet comprehend. A cold realization hit me. The quilts weren't just hiding people physically. They were hiding their essence, their voices, their stories. And Auntie Mae? She had somehow stitched them into the fabric. I sat on the floor, trying to calm my racing mind. Catherine crawled next to me, still clutching the blanket tightly. Why did she hide us here? I asked softly. Catherine's eyes welled with tears. To protect us, from him, from everyone. He wanted us gone. No one could know. Only Auntie Mae? My hands shook. Who? Who wanted you gone? She shook her head. I don't remember, but I remember the fear, the voices outside, the doors that never locked. Auntie Mae, she saved me. I nodded, heart hammering. I had to understand. I had to follow Auntie Mae's instructions. I picked up the leather-bound diary I had found under the floorboard and opened it to the page that mentioned Hunter Street. Mae had written about a man in town, a powerful figure no one questioned. She didn't name him, but the diary described his methods: intimidation, blackmail, threats. People vanished when he was involved. And some of those people had ended up hidden in her quilts. I felt a wave of dread. If he was still alive, he might know that I was here. He might be coming. Then I noticed something I had missed before. A small wooden drawer built into the wall under the sewing table. It had a tiny keyhole, the same shape as the brass key in my hand. I slid the key into the lock, turned it, and slowly pulled the drawer open. Inside was a collection of envelopes, more tapes, and a small, folded note addressed to me. Emily, you are now part of this. The voices are yours to protect. There are more like Catherine hidden around this town. The diary holds their names. Follow the instructions carefully. Do not trust anyone who asks too many questions. If he finds out you are here, it will be dangerous. Use the tapes. Use the quilts. You must carry on my work. A lump formed in my throat. May had left me a legacy I never asked for, a mission I didn't know I was prepared for. I glanced at Catherine. She looked small, fragile, but determined. Somehow, I knew she would survive this. Somehow, I knew I had to survive this too. I opened the first tape from the drawer. The static hissed before May's voice filled the room. Emily, if you are listening, you must begin tonight. The others are out there. They are waiting. Start with the diaries. Cross-check the names. Protect the quilts. And most importantly, never let him know where they are hidden. I swallowed hard. Who is he, Auntie Mae? Who are we hiding from? May's voice didn't answer, only repeated softly. Almost like a prayer. Protect the voices. Protect the voices. Protect the voices. Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from the living room. My heart jumped. Catherine gasped. I motioned for her to stay quiet. Slowly, I crept toward the hallway. The thump came again. Heavy footsteps. Someone was in the house. I ducked behind the sewing table, clutching the tape player and the brass key. The footsteps grew louder, deliberate. Someone knew I was here. Catherine trembled beside me. Emily, what do we do? I whispered back, voice firm despite the terror gripping me. We follow Auntie Mae's instructions. We hide. We protect the voices. The footsteps paused just outside the sewing room. I held my breath, heart hammering. Then, silence. For a moment, I dared to hope the intruder had left. But a small, chilling sound made me realize the truth. A hand had brushed against the sewing room door. Light fingers, almost tentative. Someone was trying the handle. The lock held, for now. I leaned toward Catherine. We have to move. We have to follow the diaries. May's work isn't done. And if we fail, everything she protected will be gone forever. Catherine nodded, clutching my arm. The quilted sanctuary that had been a prison for so many was now our battleground. The voices of those hidden within the fabrics whispered encouragement, guidance, and warnings, and I realized something terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. The house, the quilts, the diaries, the tapes, they were alive. And they were calling me to finish what Auntie Mae had started. I swallowed, steeling myself. The mission had begun. The intruder outside would not wait, and neither could I. Catherine clung to me as we tiptoed through the hallway, the brass key and diary clutched in my hands. My ears strained for the slightest sound, any movement, any hint that the man Auntie Mae had warned me about had discovered our presence. But the house was eerily silent. The only noises were the distant hum of the refrigerator and the soft rustling of Catherine's clothes against mine. I led her to the living room and knelt beside the old couch, opening the leather-bound diary to the first entry with instructions. Auntie Mae had painstakingly listed names, addresses, and cryptic clues to find the other people she had protected over the years. Some were still alive. Some had disappeared without a trace. We have to start tonight, I whispered to Catherine. Her eyes widened, but she nodded. There was no turning back. The first address was a modest house a few blocks away. Mae's note suggested we search for a hidden compartment beneath a floorboard. It was her method of hiding people in plain sight, sheltering them temporarily while ensuring the quilts and their voices remained safe. We dressed quietly, taking coats and shoes from the closet, careful not to disturb the house. I wrapped Catherine in one of Mae's quilts, giving her a sense of security. The tape recorder hummed in my bag, Mae's voice a constant guiding presence. Protect the voices, Emily. Protect the voices, it whispered in the dark. We moved cautiously through the streets of the small town. The fog from the morning had turned into a thick, heavy mist, hiding us from prying eyes. My mind raced with possibilities. Who was he? Who wanted to destroy Mae's work? And how many people had been hidden before us? The first house was quiet, too quiet. I checked the door and found it unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old wood, familiar to me in a way that made my heart ache. I followed Mae's instructions and located the floorboard she had indicated in the diary. It lifted easily under the pressure of the brass key. Inside was a small compartment, just large enough to hold a folded quilt. I lifted it carefully and unfolded it. A man, mid-20s, thin and pale, lay inside. His eyes flickered open at the sound of our voices. Emily? He whispered. I froze. How? Do you know my name? He swallowed hard. Auntie Mae. She told us. She told us to trust you, to follow you if she couldn't be there. I helped him out of the compartment. His name was Samuel. He had been hidden here for weeks, running from someone who had threatened him because of a small piece of evidence he had accidentally witnessed. Auntie Mae had kept him safe until now. Catherine and I guided Samuel to our car, careful to keep him hidden under the quilt. We drove in silence, the weight of responsibility pressing on me. Each person Mae had hidden carried a story, a secret, a life threatened by the same shadow that now loomed over us. Back at the house, I spread the diaries on the table and began cross-referencing names. There were at least a dozen more individuals hidden in the network. Each entry was more detailed, revealing danger, fear, and the lengths Mae had gone to protect them. Then I found it, the entry that made my blood run cold. The man who hunts us is relentless. He knows the quilts exist. He will try to find them. Only the one chosen, the one who can hear the voices, can continue this work. Emily, she is the key. She must survive. The network depends on her. The description fit someone I knew, someone close to the town, respected and powerful, who no one would suspect. My stomach churned. He was watching, always watching, and he had been for decades. The whispers began again in the sewing room when we returned. This time, they were louder, more urgent. Mae's tapes seemed to speak in unison with the voices trapped in the quilts. Emily, the voices are calling. Emily, you must protect us. I realized then that the quilts weren't just hiding people. They were communicating, guiding, warning, and they were reaching out to me specifically. The next step was clear. I had to visit each location in Mae's diary, rescue the hidden individuals, and bring them under my protection. But as I read further, the entries hinted at a chilling reality. Some people Mae could not save. Some were already gone, and the man hunting them would stop at nothing to erase all traces of her work. I set the diary down and looked at Catherine and Samuel. Their eyes were wide with fear, but also trust. They believed in me, in Auntie Mae, and I couldn't fail them. Night fell quickly. The house felt alive with whispers, the quilts vibrating with the voices of those Mae had protected. I realized that they were waiting for me to act, to take on the responsibility that had been passed down. I packed the remaining quilts and diaries, preparing for the first journey to save more of Mae's hidden wards. Each stop would be dangerous, each rescue a gamble. But the voices in the quilts urged me forward. I had no choice. Mae had chosen me. And now, the network depended on me. As we drove through the fog-laden streets, I kept my eyes on every shadow, every movement. I knew he was out there, watching, waiting. But I also knew this. I had the voices, the diaries, and Mae's guidance. And I would fight to protect them, no matter the cost. The first stop was only the beginning. The network was vast, the danger imminent, and the secrets deeper than I could have imagined. But one thing was certain. Auntie Mae's legacy lived on. And I was now its guardian. The night air was thick with fog and tension. The voices whispered urgently from the quilts. Emily, protect us, protect us, protect us. And I knew this was only the beginning of a journey that would reveal more than I could ever anticipate. Truths about the town, the people I trusted, and the darkness that had haunted Mae's life, and now mine. The fog was thick as we pulled up to the first location on Auntie Mae's list, a modest, abandoned farmhouse on the edge of town. Mae's diary entry had warned that this was one of the more dangerous sites. The person hidden here had been on the run for months, their life threatened by the man who had haunted Mae for decades. I gripped the brass key in one hand and Mae's diary in the other. Catherine huddled under a quilt, her face pale but resolute. Samuel's hand rested lightly on my shoulder. We were a fragile convoy, but determined. The farmhouse loomed ahead, dark and silent, windows staring like empty eyes. I slipped the key into the rusted lock of the back door and turned it. A soft click. The door groaned open. Inside, dust motes danced in the faint moonlight that filtered through broken windows. The smell of mold and old wood was overwhelming. I whispered to Catherine and Samuel, "Stay close, stay quiet, and remember what Mae said, trust the voices." We moved cautiously, following the diary's instructions. Underneath a loose floorboard in the kitchen, just as Mae had described, was a small compartment. My hands trembled as I lifted the board, revealing a thin, frightened teenager with striking green eyes. "Emily?" the teen whispered, voice quivering. I helped them out, wrapping them in a quilt. "It's okay. You're safe now." "Auntie Mae trusted me to bring you out." The teenager clung to the quilt, silent but visibly relieved. I glanced around, the farmhouse groaning ominously. I knew we couldn't linger. The man Mae had warned us about was always closer than we imagined. We moved back toward our car, the voices from the quilts whispering encouragement and instructions. I realized that the quilts were more than just hiding places. They were communicating with me. Each person we rescued strengthened the connection, and I began to hear faint snippets of stories from the quilts before we even reached them. But then, I heard something different. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate. Someone approaching the car from the darkness. I froze, heart hammering. "He's here," I whispered. Samuel gripped my arm. "What do we do?" I didn't answer. The man emerged from the mist, tall, broad-shouldered, familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. I had seen him around town. He was respected, unassuming, trusted by everyone, yet the diary had described him perfectly. This was the one who had haunted May, the one who would stop at nothing to erase her work. He smiled coldly. "Emily," he said, voice smooth and commanding. "I see you've found my little secret." I swallowed hard, gripping the brass key tightly. "You don't understand. Auntie Mae protected them. These people have done nothing wrong." He chuckled. "Everything they've done wrong is a threat to me. May underestimated me once. She won't again. And neither will you." Catherine whimpered beside me. I motioned for her to stay behind me, the quilt wrapped around her like a shield. "Emily," he continued, stepping closer. "You think you can hide them? Protect them? You have no idea what you're up against." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. "I don't need to hide them. The quilts will protect them. May taught me everything she knew. You won't find a single trace." His eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." Suddenly, the tapes in my bag clicked on by themselves, May's voice booming through the still night. "Emily, protect the voices. Protect the voices. Protect the voices." The quilts began to shift around us, the voices rising in a chorus of warning and guidance. The man's confident smirk faltered as he glanced at the quilts, realizing their power was not just symbolic. It was active, alive, and protective. The teenager I had rescued from the farmhouse began speaking softly, repeating fragments of voices from the quilts. "Leave, don't touch, Emily knows." The man's face twisted in rage. He lunged, but the quilts seemed to form a barrier, soft, yet immovable. The voices grew louder, almost tangible, disorienting him. I realized then that Auntie Mae had imbued them with more than protection. They could influence perception, warn the hidden, and confuse the aggressor. I grabbed Catherine and Samuel, ushering the group back toward the safety of our car. The man's shouts echoed behind us, but the quilts continued to hum, their voices guiding our path through the fog. Once we were safely inside the car, the tapes continued playing, May's voice steady and commanding. "Emily, the network depends on you. You must lead them. Protect them." I realized that this was more than a rescue operation. It was a battle. Against time, against fear, against a man whose reach extended far beyond our town. We drove in silence for a few minutes, letting the fog hide us. I glanced at Catherine, whose eyes were wide with a mixture of awe and terror. Samuel sat stiffly, gripping his quilt, listening intently as if he could hear the quilt's whispers. "This is just the beginning," I said quietly. "We have to keep going. There are more people, more voices, more danger." Catherine nodded, determination replacing the fear in her eyes. "We'll follow you, Emily. We trust you." I swallowed hard, the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders. Auntie Mae had chosen me, but now the real work began. The diaries, the quilts, the voices, they were all pieces of a larger puzzle. And if we failed, countless lives would be at risk. The fog thickened around the car as we drove toward the next location. The voices in the quilts whispered incessantly, providing guidance, warnings, and encouragement. Each note, Each fragment of Mae's diaries, each rescued individual added to the growing network. I began to understand the magnitude of Mae's work and the danger of those who sought to destroy it. By the time we reached the outskirts of town, night had deepened into a heavy darkness, and the air felt charged, almost electric. The whispers from the quilts were louder now, more urgent. We were nearing another hiding place, another soul in need. But I knew this. Each rescue brought us closer to confrontation, closer to the man who had haunted Mae for decades. And I also knew this. The voices were not just guiding us. They were preparing us. I gripped the brass key tightly and whispered to Catherine and Samuel, "We're ready. Mae left us everything we need. We follow the voices, we save them, and we fight if we must." The quilts hummed softly as if responding, their voices blending into a symphony of protection, courage, and warning. And in that moment, I understood. The hidden network wasn't just about protection. It was a living, breathing force, a legacy. And I was now its guardian. The journey had only begun. The car's headlights cut through the fog as we drove toward the next location. The voices in the quilts whispered constantly now, overlapping in a cacophony of guidance, warnings, and pleas. I tried to focus on the diary's instructions, but the quilt around Catherine's shoulders seemed to vibrate as if it had its own heartbeat. The town looked different at night, even familiar streets twisting into something unrecognizable in the mist. Every shadow seemed alive. Every window seemed to hold a watcher. I realized that the man who had hunted Mae, and now hunted me, wasn't just a local threat. He had eyes everywhere. He had influence. He was dangerous beyond comprehension. We stopped at a small, decrepit house near the edge of the woods. The diary indicated that the person hidden here had been terrified of leaving. Mae's notes emphasized caution. I led Catherine and Samuel toward the back door. The brass key slid into the lock and turned with surprising ease. Inside, dust choked the air. My flashlight revealed the outline of a cabinet near the corner. According to the diary, the hiding compartment was beneath it. I lifted the cabinet just enough to see a young woman, pale and trembling, clutching a bundle of old clothes. Her eyes were wide with fear, but they brightened when she recognized the quilts. "Emily?" she whispered. "Yes," I said softly, kneeling beside her. "Auntie Mae trusted me to bring you out. You're safe now." She clung to a quilt like it was a lifeline. Her name was Lillian, and her story was terrifying. Threatened by a man in the town who had connections that ran deep, just like Mae had warned. We guided her to the car, the quilts seeming to hum with quiet encouragement. But as we prepared to leave, a noise stopped me cold, a soft, deliberate tap on the window. I froze. My heart pounded. I knew that sound. He was close. I gestured for everyone to stay quiet. The tapping continued, moving from window to window, circling the car. Then a figure emerged from the fog, tall, broad, confident, and smiling. It was the man. He spoke calmly, almost mockingly. "Emily, I knew you'd follow the quilts. I knew you'd try to protect them. But you don't understand the stakes. These people aren't just lives, they're leverage, they're proof, and I can't let them survive." I felt a chill run down my spine. "You won't succeed. Mae trusted me. I won't let you hurt them." His eyes gleamed with malice. "You think Mae's tapes and quilts can stop me? You're naive. She underestimated my reach, and now, so will you." Suddenly, one of the quilts, around Lillian, shifted violently. The voices of the hidden spoke as one. Protect us, protect us, protect us. The man stumbled, momentarily disoriented by the rising chorus. I realized that May had imbued the quilts not just with memory, but with power, protection, guidance, influence. I seized the moment. Get in the car! Now! I shouted. We scrambled inside as the quilt seemed to pulse, shielding us, confusing him. The man's shouts echoed in the fog, but the quilt's presence kept him at bay just long enough for us to drive away. We didn't stop until we reached a safe house May had listed in the diary, an old church on the outskirts of town. It smelled faintly of cedar and candle wax, familiar and comforting. The quilts lay on the floor, pulsating softly with the voices of those we had rescued. But my relief was short-lived. I opened the diary to the next entry and froze. It wasn't just the man in town who posed a threat. Someone closer, someone I had trusted, had been working with him. The entry detailed a betrayal that shook me to my core. May had discovered that a member of the town council, someone known for charity work and community service, had been funneling information to the man hunting the hidden individuals. I thought of Samuel. I thought of Catherine. I thought of everyone I had met on this journey. Could any of them be involved? A sound behind me made my blood run cold. The door creaked open. I spun around to see Samuel standing there, holding a folded piece of paper. Emily, I found this, he said softly. My heart skipped a beat. I took it from him and unfolded it. It was a note, unsigned, with a warning. You are walking into a trap. Someone close to you is betraying the network. Trust the voices, Emily. Trust the quilts. But question everyone else. I stared at him. Samuel, did you write this? He shook his head, pale. No. I found it hidden in the safe house. May must have left it here for you. The realization hit me. The network was not just about hidden people. It was about deception, manipulation, and survival. May had known the danger extended beyond the obvious. Even those who appeared trustworthy could be compromised. I felt the quilts shift around me, almost as if they understood my fear. Their whispers were urgent now. Emily, protect us. Watch. Listen. Protect us. The voices gave me a sense of clarity. The betrayal would come from someone familiar, someone I had let close without suspicion. But May's guidance, through the quilts and diaries, had prepared me. I gathered Catherine and Lillian close. We move at dawn, I whispered. We continue the network, and we find the others, but we must be careful. Trust no one who asks too many questions. That night, I couldn't sleep. The quilts seemed alive, their whispers constant, pressing into my mind, warning, guiding, and comforting. I understood now. Auntie Mae's legacy was far more complex than rescuing people. It was about vigilance, protection, and surviving against forces that wanted the voices silenced forever. I glanced at Catherine, asleep under a quilt. The girl had endured years of fear, hidden and alone. And now, she depended on me, on the network, on Mae's legacy. The man hunting us was still out there. The betrayal was still unknown, and the voices in the quilts were waiting for me to lead them. I clenched the brass key in my hand. It wasn't just a key to locks. It was a key to the past, to protection, to survival. And I would need it, along with the diaries and the quilts, to face the coming danger. The journey was far from over. The shadows of the past stretched long, and the network was counting on me. I whispered to the quilts, feeling the pulse of their voices around me. I will protect you. I will lead you. I will not fail. And somewhere in the darkness, the man and his ally watched, waiting for the moment to strike. But I was ready. Auntie Mae had prepared me. The voices had chosen me. And the hidden network was alive, stronger than ever.